Hi guys, it's David Goodman and Jackson Maddox.
How's it going?
With the Grow Team at Real Broker, and today we are going to do a video. We work with a lot of people that are moving here, and today we want to get into the nitty-gritty of some of the negatives, some of the cons that you should be aware of before considering moving to Nashville. While Music City has its undeniable charms, it's not all honky-tonks and cowboy boots. So let's talk about the cons of moving to Nashville. And before we do, if you guys are interested in content like this, or if you're considering to move to Nashville, Tennessee, we would love to help you out with that. Please subscribe and like any of these videos. If you have any questions, you can comment in the videos or shoot us a text or give us a call. We'd love to help you make that a very smooth transition to Nashville, Tennessee. Now we'll get right into the video. Okay, first thing you should consider before moving here, we have some interesting weather. Before you pack your bags and head to Nashville, there are a few things you should consider. Firstly, let's address the weather. While Nashville enjoys, all 4 seasons, it's important to note that we are susceptible to really severe weather, including tornadoes. Tornado season typically spans from March to May, and while they're not everyday occurrences, it is something you should be aware of. I would say they happen once or twice a year.
At least once a year, every other year, there's a pretty substantial one.
Yeah, and this past year we had a tornado go through Madison and take out a lot of buildings. It's really, I don't know if there's really a way to predict it, but we're
very unpredictable, yeah.
I mean, we had one in Madison this past year. East Nashville's been hit by a couple big tornadoes. I don't think it's something you should lay at night and worry about, but it is something to consider. So if that is a concern of yours, you may want to look at a house with a basement or something like that.
Or have a plan in place.
Exactly.
You don't have a basement.
Exactly. Yeah. The other thing about weather that I think you should consider if you're coming from places like California is that we have all weather, and it gets really hot here, and it can be beautiful too, right? It can be beautiful in the spring and the fall. I love the fall here. But in the winter, we do usually have 1 or 2 weeks of really, really cold weather. And this past year, it got down to
7 degrees,
single digits
11,
for about a week
that.
or two. And so we had some clients that needed to weatherize their house to make sure that they didn't have issues, but that does happen here, and we had about 8 inches of snow.
Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark, 8 to 12.
So
a lot of ice.
Yeah, if you're not used to that kind of weather, we do get 1 or 2 snowy days, which is nice. I kind of like that. The kids play in it. Everything shuts down. That's the other thing, is the city does shut down even with a little bit of snow, just because we're just not built for that kind of those issues. So we don't have the infrastructure in place to clear out roads. So when it does happen, we pretty much stop everything.
The whole city shuts down.
Yeah. So just be aware of that. And then in the summertime, it's hot.
Very.
I mean, and it's kind of humid. We're from Houston originally, so it's nothing compared to that if you're coming from that area. But we do have some humidity and some heat to be aware of.
Yeah, I think it's definitely still in the ballpark of, it's not nearly what Houston is, but it's definitely in that same range of kind of relative humidity and heat, and it gets pretty scorching some days.
Which one do you dislike the most?
Honestly, there's nothing worse than the middle of the summer sweating that you can achieve in Houston, Texas. So. That level of humidity is just unmatched anywhere that I've lived. So
here,
I think it's a little bit milder here, but definitely still hot, very hot.
And for me, the cold weather I don't particularly love. I do like a snowy day, but
it gets old after a while.
It does get cold. But for the most part, we have a nice long fall and a really long spring. And then the summer is, if you're from hotter areas, it's not the worst. But if you're not used to that kind of all those seasons, you'll get all of them if you move to Nashville. All right, the next thing you need to think about before you move here, another downside to living in Nashville is the traffic. With rapid population growth, traffic congestion has become a daily headache for residents. And I was actually just dealing with this, trying to make it to this video. I'm about half an hour late because some person couldn't figure out how to get out of a car garage. And I don't know what your experience is on this, but I will say the other big thing is we were actually voted. I don't know what article it was. Maybe we can pull up what the article was, but we were voted the worst traffic and transportation city in America.
I believe it.
In 2023 or 2024. And for those of you coming from California and Houston and Atlanta, I would say we're not. But the big reason why we took the cake was because our transit system is behind. So we don't have much of a transit system. We have buses, but it's getting reworked and the mayor's wanting to do more with it, but we don't have a very good transit system.
And the roads themselves need to be patched, and there's not enough of them to get around town because of the river. I would put the traffic as my number one reason. The traffic is my number one out of this whole list. Yeah, that's my number one
favorite.
Yeah,
and if you know the days, do you think one of the big reasons for that is because we have so many tourists here, they don't know where they're going?
I think so, and there's also a lot of different driving styles. So people from different cities that are used to different sort of standards and customs on the road it's a lot of mixture of that.
That's so good. So up north, this is kind of how I drive. We drive diligently and efficiently. Yeah. We use all of the lanes and we go the speed limit at least. But we've got folks coming from the Midwest. We got people who are coming from the South and people from California, and it's all mixed. And then most people, if you look at all the license plates that are here, if you look at them, and you're getting closer to Nashville, a lot of them are not Davidson County, Tennessee license plate. They're from Florida, California. I mean, they're from everywhere.
You can always spot an Atlanta driver because they drive like they have nothing to lose.
Right. Which I kind of appreciate that, honestly. Yeah. But also with our roads, I don't know. There's these things that if you are from here, you know that you shouldn't be in this lane for that long, but there's not a lot of good signs that tell you.
Yes.
So a lot of people get stuck in certain spots and then they
have to
end
make
up
a split decision.
Or they just hold up traffic instead of dude, no, you missed it. You have to try again. Yeah. So there's these unknowns that if you're not from here, you're not going to know that you need to kind of get over at certain times because our highways kind of do this. Yep. They interconnect, and you could be on 4 different highways at one time.
And there's no forgiveness for a missed turn.
There's no feeders here. If you're from Texas, we don't have feeders. If you exit or if you miss your exit, you are going to have to add another 10 minutes at least to your drive because there's no do-overs, unfortunately.
Nope. There's no next exit you get off and then you're fine.
If it's the next exit, you could be in a different part of town.
Take you to a different direction.
So traffic, while I will say it's not as bad as Atlanta traffic or New York traffic or LA traffic. It's not that bad. It's just the fact that we don't have yet good alternative modes of transportation, and we are currently growing. But the overall drive, the average commute is about 30 minutes for Nashvillians who are living out in the suburbs. It's about a 30-minute drive. So not the end of the world, but definitely it is one of the cons and something you should consider before you move here. Guys, I'm interrupting my own video just to let you know that if you follow me on Instagram at GrowWithDaveTN, you'll see the deal of the week that I post every single week. These are on and off market deals, not only for single family, not only for investors, it's just everything in between Nashville real estate related that is a good deal. You'll see it once a week, deal of the week. Grow with Dave TN on Instagram. Follow it, you won't regret it. And back to the video. Next, number 3, let's not forget about the tourists. While Nashville's booming tourism industry brings vibrancy to the city, it also means crowded streets, long lines, and packed venues, particularly in popular tourist areas like Broadway and the Gulch. And if you're not from here, as you get closer to the city and we get closer to the weekend, I do find it, I love that we have such an entertainment economy, but it can get annoying just driving by all of the tractor party buses with bachelorette parties and women screaming, especially like on a Wednesday at 8 in the morning. You're just like, what are we doing?
I'm going to work. Y'all are like,
it blackout. It adds into 8 a.m. Some of that traffic issue is related to that, just because we have all these, we have tourists. We're a place that people want to be.
I don't know if you remember, but maybe about 10 months ago, we had Taylor Swift and George Strait in town at the exact same time. And the city, it was almost as bad as when the whole city froze in terms of things being shut down. You could not get anywhere in the loop around downtown. There was no access because I think there was something about, it was a couple hundred extra thousand people. Extra couple 100,000 people.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That weekend coming from all over to see Taylor Swift and George Strait. And it absolutely shut down the whole downtown area.
Yeah. So if you're not into that, you may want to consider that before you move here, because we are a place that people want to come to and visit. So just so you're aware. All right, getting into our next topic that you should consider before you move here, and that would be the rapid growth that has led to widespread construction and development, which means noise, dust, disruptions to your daily life. So if you're not a fan of constant construction, you might find Nashville's ever-changing skyline a bit of a nuisance. Is that what your experience with all the construction?
There definitely is a lot of construction, and it's certainly annoying when you get onto a road that you use all the time to get somewhere, and all of a sudden a lane is now not available. Because like we said a second ago with the traffic, that means there's not a lot of other options to get where you're trying to go if you can't use the main road that you're used to using. It hasn't been too bad. I mean, certainly not at the top of the list for me, but I can definitely see how that would annoy certain people, especially if they live in an area that's more affected by it.
Yeah, and the joke is the city bird of Nashville is the crane, because there's so many cranes that you see in the city. A lot of development, a lot of growth downtown especially, but also getting into the suburbs, there's a lot of construction as well. So if you're not into that, it's just something to think about before you move here. The other thing about the construction, we have a gigantic development that's coming to the city. It's the East Bank redevelopment, spending billions of dollars on the river, and that hasn't even really started yet. The Titan Stadium is getting moved, and that's going to be $2.1 billion. There's tons of the Oracle campuses are going to be underway, and they're just now starting development on those. I just heard about a lawsuit just today of a development company that was mad at the city because the city now needs to build new roads through one of their developments. So there's just going to be a lot of mess and a lot of intricate pieces. I think by the time it's done in 2027 or 30, I don't really know when, I think by the time it's done, it's going to be beautiful, but that just means a lot of construction that's going to be happening.
Yep.
So there's a lot of constructions, especially at the airport, which ties into our tourism, which ties into people wanting to be here and visit. So just something to be aware of before you make the move to Nashville. All right, let's get down to the next part of our list, and that is the lack of good food. And really, we know that Nashville has a diverse culinary scene downtown. We lack good options leaving the city. Like I said, like there's gyms found in the suburbs and surrounding neighborhoods. Foodies might feel limited compared to the larger array of different options that are in downtown Nashville. Depending on where you're from, the food scene can be good, but if you're from places like Houston, New York, Chicago, LA, and you're used to a lot of great food options everywhere, I would not say we are in that category yet.
Yeah, I would say I kind of have a two-part thought process about it. I think that Nashville's a great food city in the more like you said, the downtown areas and then the more trendy areas around town that are maybe more well-funded and developed. There's a lot of little good spots. As you get out from the city and you start to get to the outskirts and the suburbs, it does become harder because you're just not, a lot of those restaurants don't get the same level of publicity that some of the ones further downtown do. There is a drop-off in quality. So you do have to definitely get creative and be adventurous and try stuff that you're gonna have to look a little bit more to find those spots. I think they're out there. I will say that because I do think Nashville has a lot of great food. But yeah, the further out of the city you get, the tougher it is to find those really good staple Nashville places.
And there's like gems, but I know like when you're from places like Houston, for example, it's like, if you're trying to get like some Indian food, it's like there's like one in that area that you're in. Like say you're in Donaldson, there's one spot. Right. Or if you're like, okay, where's a good place to get Vietnamese food? Well, if you're in Hermitage, nowhere.
Yeah.
There's nowhere. You have to go into Nashville or into Mount Juliet, and that's like there's like one in those areas. So there's there's not a lot. There's not like something on every single street
for sure
or area like there is in some of these other areas. Like, but if you're in East Nashville, if you're near downtown, or if you're kind of just in the Nations, West Nashville, Belmead, Berry Hill, if you're kind of near that bullseye, then you'll definitely have some options. If you're kind of looking in Hermitage or Mount Juliet or
Brentwood, Franklin.
Well, Brentwood even has some good options now, but it's kind of like these less.
It's more chains.
There's just more chains. Yeah. It's more just less spice to life, I would say. It's a little bit more generic and more your chain restaurants.
You can always find a
Chili's, O'Charlie's. If you love those, you're not going to have any issues in Nashville. But if you want a little bit of something more interesting and local, it gets tougher as you go away from Nashville. Yeah. Okay, another consideration is allergies. Nashville's lush greenery and blooming flowers can be a haven for pollen, leading to seasonal allergies for some residents. If you're prone to allergies, be prepared to stock up on allergy medication during the spring and the fall seasons. And for me, I know that I have not, I didn't really have a lot of allergy issues, but I don't know if I'm getting older or what, but in the last year or two, I have found that my allergies have gotten worse.
Yeah, I don't have it as much here, but I will say when I was going to college not far from here, I would get allergies every time I would go from Houston to Mississippi or Mississippi back to Houston and was there for a good period of time. It was like it took me a while for my body to adjust to whatever the pollen was in the area. So there might be a bit of that.
Just being used to.
Yeah, exactly. And I know people that live here that definitely deal with it a lot more than I do.
There's a lot of people who deal with it really, really badly. And I saw something on the internet. I don't know if this is true, but it was on the internet from an influencer in Nashville that Nashville was one of the worst places in America for pollen and allergies. Don't know if that's true. Fact check me if you want, but it's definitely bad, and especially some of my California transplants, they struggle with it. So something to note. Okay, and last, when it comes to friendliness, Nashville certainly lives up to its reputation for Southern hospitality. However, for some newcomers, especially from up north, this can mean unexpected interactions with strangers. It's not uncommon for friendly locals to strike up a conversation with you, even if in places like the grocery store or when you may not be in a good mood for a chat. I know, for myself even, and my wife especially, she's not into unwelcome interactions. And in Nashville, you're prone to be around people that are outgoing and friendly and want to strike up a conversation. They're probably not in a rush to go anywhere. Maybe they're on vacation or they're retired or just friendly people. That is a thing here. So if you're not used to that kind of culture, just be aware. be a little bit more patient because you're going to have people that are in a good mood and want to talk to you.
Definitely. I would say, for me, that was part of the reason I chose Nashville. I've lived in places that are the opposite. But that being said, I'm from the South, I'm from Texas, so it's kind of similar culture, across the South. And so that's something I'm very used to, but I totally understand that people from other places might see that and be like, what? Why are you talking to me? Like, I'm buying eggs, why are you trying to ask me about my kids, ask me how my life is going, So I definitely get that if that is not the culture that you're from and not something that you're all that interested in being a part of in the grocery store.
Right.
Yeah.
So we really hope that helped. Those are just something. We love the city, obviously, but we want to give you guys a good idea of what to expect before you get here. It may not be for everybody, just depending on what your preferences are. We think that the pros definitely outweigh the cons, but we just want to make sure you're aware of these things as you're considering the move to Nashville. And if you are considering the move to Nashville, or are already here and looking for some assistance, Jackson and I would love to help out. We've helped out tons of people from our YouTube page and from elsewhere, help them make the move here. We want to make that transition as easy as possible. So check in the description below for our contact information. You can call, email, or text us. We'd be happy to help you out. Yep. And thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.